Imagine owning your dream home. You worked for years to afford it, carefully paying your mortgage, maintaining the property, and trying to build a stable life for your family. Then one day, you open a letter in the mail. It's from your homeowners association, commonly known as an HOA. The letter says you violated a rule in your neighborhood. At first, you assume it's a small warning or maybe a minor fine. But when you read further, you realize the situation is far worse than you imagined. The penalties have been accumulating for months. The fines have grown larger and larger, and now the total amount you owe has reached $400,000, all because of one mistake. Stories like this sound unbelievable, but they highlight a powerful and often misunderstood system that exists in many neighborhoods. To understand how something like this can happen, we need to look closely at how HOAs work and why their rules can become incredibly expensive when ignored. What an HOA actually is. A homeowners association is an organization created to manage and regulate a residential community. These communities might include neighborhoods of single-family homes, townhouses, or condominiums. The HOA is responsible for maintaining shared spaces, such as parks, sidewalks, pools, and landscaping. It also creates rules designed to preserve the appearance and property values of the neighborhood. When someone buys a home in an HOA community, they automatically agree to follow these rules. The agreement becomes part of the property's legal documents. Many homeowners barely think about these rules after moving in. They assume the HOA mainly handles landscaping and community maintenance. But in reality, the HOA has the legal authority to enforce regulations and impose fines when rules are violated. The rule that started everything. In the case that eventually led to massive fines, the original violation was surprisingly small. The homeowner made a change to their property without receiving prior approval from the HOA board. When an HOA identifies a violation, the first step is usually a warning notice. This letter explains the rule that was broken and asks the homeowner to correct the issue. If the homeowner ignores the warning or fails to resolve the issue within the required time frame, the HOA may begin issuing fines. These fines might start small. In many communities, they range from $25 to $100 per day for ongoing violations. At first, that amount may not seem serious, but the key phrase here is per day. If the violation continues for weeks or months, the fines multiply quickly. What began as a minor penalty can eventually grow into thousands of dollars, the escalation process. Once fines reach significant levels, HOAs often take additional steps to enforce payment. One of the most powerful tools available to an HOA is the ability to place a lien on the homeowner's property. A lien is a legal claim against the home that must be paid before the property can be sold or refinanced. This means the homeowner cannot simply ignore the fines indefinitely. The debt remains attached to the property itself. In some extreme cases, if fines and legal fees remain unpaid, the HOA may even initiate foreclosure proceedings. That's when a relatively small violation can transform into a financial disaster. Legal fees and administrative costs. Another factor that dramatically increases HOA penalties is the addition of legal and administrative costs. Once lawyers become involved, the total amount owed can grow very quickly. Attorney fees, court filings, and collection expenses are often added to the homeowner's balance. These costs can sometimes exceed the original fines themselves. For example, if a homeowner disputes the violation or fails to respond to legal notices, the HOA may continue pursuing the case through the courts. Each step of the process adds new expenses. Over time, these additional charges can turn what started as a few $100s in fines into tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in total liability. Why HOAs enforce rules so strictly? From the HOA's perspective, strict enforcement is necessary to maintain property values and neighborhood standards. HOA boards often argue that if one homeowner ignores the rules, others may begin doing the same. Eventually, the appearance and quality of the community could decline. For example, if one homeowner installs an unapproved structure or leaves property maintenance unfinished, it might encourage similar behavior throughout the neighborhood. By enforcing rules consistently, the HOA believes it protects the overall investment of every homeowner in the community. However, critics argue that HOAs sometimes apply rules too aggressively or impose penalties that become disproportionate to the original violation. The hidden risks of HOA communities. Millions of people live in HOA-managed neighborhoods without ever encountering serious problems. The rules governing an HOA community are typically detailed in documents called covenants, conditions, and restrictions, often abbreviated as CC&Rs. These documents can contain dozens or even hundreds of rules covering everything from landscaping and exterior colors to parking and holiday decorations. Because these rules are legally binding, violations can trigger enforcement actions even if the homeowner was unaware of the requirement. This is why real estate experts often advise buyers to carefully review HOA documents before purchasing property in such communities. How situations escalate so dramatically. The reason situations like a $400,000 HOA fine become possible is not because a single penalty is that large. What began as a minor rule violation eventually becomes a complex legal case with significant financial consequences. In many situations, homeowners realize the seriousness of the problem only after the penalties have already reached enormous levels. Lessons for homeowners. Stories like this serve as a reminder that homeownership involves more than just paying a mortgage. When living in an HOA community, homeowners are also agreeing to a structured set of rules that must be taken seriously. One of the most important steps homeowners can take is understanding their community's guidelines before making changes to their property. Submitting requests for approval may seem inconvenient, but it can prevent much larger problems later on. Communication with the HOA board can often resolve conflicts before they escalate into legal disputes. The broader debate about HOA power. The growing number of extreme HOA cases has sparked broader discussions about whether HOAs should have such strong enforcement authority. Some critics believe state governments should introduce stronger protections for homeowners to prevent excessive fines and aggressive foreclosure actions. Others argue that HOAs must maintain strict authority to preserve community standards and property values. This debate continues in many states as lawmakers attempt to balance homeowner rights with the responsibilities of community management. The story of a homeowner facing $400,000 in HOA fines may sound shocking, but it illustrates a deeper reality about the legal structure of many modern neighborhoods. HOAs have the power to enforce rules, impose penalties, and pursue collections in ways that many homeowners underestimate. Most of the time, these systems function quietly in the background, maintaining shared spaces and community guidelines. But when rules are ignored or disputes escalate, the consequences can become far more serious than anyone expects. For homeowners, the lesson is simple. Understand the rules of the community you live in, communicate when issues arise, and never assume that small violations will remain small forever.